So, it is the end of 2022 at last, and what we wanted to do was similar to last year, do a year's end video. And we talked last year about all the games we finished in 2021, and I liked that so much that I kind of want to do it again here in 2022 because we honestly have a pretty impressive list of games we've each separately and together finished this year, part of which was because of differences in schedule, and I had some time when I wasn't working to finish some games that I otherwise would not have finished if that was the case, and you had a week off for holiday vacation where you got to binge a game and completely finish it from start to finish in one sitting pretty much, right?
Which is a good thing.
So
I would not have been a productive member of society if I had not gotten the chance to do that.
Yeah, but other than that, I think the less said about 2022 overall, the better. This will also be sort of a test for a new microphone I have attached to the camera right now to see how different it sounds, because this is a very echoey room. It's a very large, and it's a large room with a very tall ceiling, and it's very echoey. And this microphone has a pickup pattern that is concentrated directly in front of it, so I'm wanting to see how well that sounds in a setting like this, so hopefully it'll be fine.
So it's like pointed at us, so when our voices...
Yeah, it's only supposed to pick up sound coming directly in front of it and not from all around it, like the built-in microphone or like the stereo microphone, the other one I have, which was a complete waste of time to get that microphone. I really needed something like this from the beginning. So we'll see how it sounds. This will effectively be a test of that, but yeah, I think the less said about 2022, the better. It wasn't bad, but it was just kind of meh. It was coming off of the really rough year that was 2021 and 2020, but it did have a lot of good things happen in it. What are some things that you are particularly proud of in terms of creative stuff, like stuff that you've made this year?
So compared to last year, I feel like I finished a lot more. Except like right after AWA, like it just, at the end of the year is probably like the worst for me. But I think throughout the year I stayed pretty consistent as far as like drawing and like finishing stuff. Did I post all of it? No. I need to, it's more so like I just need to remember to post.
Right.
I think my favorite thing I did this year was the Halloween pictures that I did. I drew 3 of my Pokemon OCs. I drew them in Halloween themed outfits, kind of like how Pokemon Masters have the Signa suits. I did that for my characters because they as well always have Halloween themed characters around that time of the year. So I did the same thing, and I was able to post it right before AWA. Finished it right before AWA. But I'm gonna try to go into next year trying to be more productive, and trying to actually get physical merch out. That was one of my goals for this year that I did not reach. Just life happened.
Yeah. Sort of a recap of all of the things that happened video-wise this year. I made the decision to stop uploading Yu-Gi-Oh! Content to this channel and make a third separate channel just for Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And that has been fine. And I'm actually planning to do a 2022 recap in Yu-Gi-Oh! With that channel to kind of recap what it was like to play the game in the year of 2022, which overall I had a fantastic time with, but I won't get it too lost in the woods with that. But again, after we hit around, again, like October-ish, it really started to peter out where it's like, I don't really feel like making content for this channel because we're in the middle of a Tier 0 format and it's not a lot of fun. And I didn't really have the ability to play the game very much, so there wasn't really much incentive to make content for it. So that channel kind of, got pushed off to the wayside. As far as the main channel goes, made the RPG video at the beginning of the year, which I'm super proud of. I think it didn't do as well as I would hope it to do in terms of metrics and performance, but it did decently well, and the people that watched it all seemed to like it. and then Sam and I got to redo that panel at AWA or got to redo that whole video as a panel. So it's effectively been uploaded twice.
Yeah.
Where, you can watch it either in a scripted setting or in a live setting. It's the same exact content being discussed, more or less, but I'm pretty proud of that one. And then there was the freezing one right after that. And then the huge roadblock that completely changed the trajectory of the channel for 2022 was the Heaven's Feel video getting copyright stricken, because after that was supposed to be the Trigun video. And because YouTube's current content ID system and copyright protection system is so hostile to people using any kind of footage of film, television, or anime in their videos, I just decided, okay, we're done. Not doing any more video essays on anime for now. The Trigun video, the Tiger and Bunny video, the Heaven's Feel videos are all shelved for the time being. I'm only focusing on video essays that are going to be around games or some kind of lecture-based content that doesn't involve showing anime footage, because I'm not going to spend hundreds of hours writing a script, editing, recording, and all that, only to have the video taken down by a bot without a real person at the wheel. Because I disputed the content claim on the Heaven's Feel video, and it got approved, and then it hit with another one, which was automatic takedown, where the video was deleted altogether, and like 5 people got to actually watch it. So it was a complete waste of time, and I'm not changing the video to succumb to the weird copyright bullshit with YouTube. I'm leaving it as it is. If anything, if we ever decide to do a Patreon type of thing, then the Heaven's Feel trilogy will be a Patreon exclusive video, where and that's probably something we will discuss in the new year, is just starting some kind of Patreon or something of the sort, as literally just as a tip jar at the moment, and not having any kind of goals or tiers or anything like that in mind. Just like, if you like what we do, support us, dollar here, dollar there, and we'll have some perks on the back end of that, which would mainly just be, on my end, would at least be the Heaven's Feel trilogy of video essays, and the if I make one on the Gungrave anime, like a standalone video on just the Gungrave anime, that will be a Patreon only video as well. And then whatever you want to.
I would have to think about it.
Yeah.
My little brain has to ponder that. I do have a Ko-fi.
After that was, I got the massive like Transformers brainworms over the summer, thanks to a couple of friends of ours, and so started. I had this idea for a Transformers video game retrospective in the back of my head for a long time, and then when I hit that right moment where I was like, okay, I'm literally making this tomorrow. And a lot of the best things I've ever made have been made completely on impulse like that, where it's like an idea that just gets so buried into your head where you're like, I can't stop thinking about this until I just make it. And that's what that Armada video was, which that video is probably my most successful video of the year. That video did very well. And the sequel to it, the movie game video, did not do so well, but that's fine. I'm not concerned if the movie game videos do all that well, because I'm trying to get through them to get to the really good games. So when we talk about War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, that's the ones I really care a lot about. And then Caleb over there, Flashing Blades, wants to do a collaboration with me when we talk about Transformers Devastation. So one day when we get to that, that'll be what I'm really looking forward to and counting on that doing well. And then started the Muso retrospective, which I think a lot of people latched onto and said they liked, because, like I thought, it's a genre of games that not a lot of people know about or not a lot of people talk about, and so the niche fans that are out there are craving that discussion around it. So the next video is, I am going to do the next part of the Muso retrospective, which is the Sengoku Basara video. The next Transformers video is the Revenge of the Fallen game, which is in the works as well. And I am beginning the Yasuhiro Naitao retrospective with the first Gungrave game. I'm going to kind of add a lot of the script I had ready for the Trigun video into the Gungrave video, and we're just going to do a Gungrave retrospective, just the first game, the second game, and Gore. And if I ever do a video about the Gungrave anime, it'll be, like I said, a Patreon-only video. So over the course of 2023, we should make pretty deep cuts into the Muso and Transformers retrospective, but I'll hopefully be able to go through all three Gungrave games, and maybe in my spare time have time to make the Heaven's Feel Part 2 video as a Patreon exclusive, maybe. But I think for the entirety of 2023 is probably going to be those three series of video essays, maybe something different in between, but it's mainly just going to be those three, the Muso retrospective, the Transformers one, and the Gungrave one. Anything else before we get started on games?
No, I don't think so.
We have a Bingus, and I don't
There
know
she goes.
if she's going to stay in the shot or not.
She's in the lap, so she's in the shot. I'm getting a little censor the butt.
That's definitely a Patreon exclusive. may contain butts. You know that's a board game. That's like a little card game, board game, like Exploding Kittens. It says may contain butts, and it shows like a little cat butt.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a not safe for work version of that game.
I'm not surprised in the slightest. So on to the first game we finished in 2022. So we started this at some point in the middle of 2021, and that we finally finished it like right at the turn of the beginning of the year. And that was, I took Michelle all the way through the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
And this is actually not the original copy that I played back in the day. The original copy that I had was one that one of my best friends bought from a play and trade for like $50, I think is what it was back in the day. And it was like a beat up greatest hits copy, and that's the one I played for most of the time. But eventually over the years I was like, you know what, I want a really clean Black Label copy, and I sought that one out. But if I were ever to play it on the physical discs again, I would play the original one, that greatest hits one that's well loved and well worn. But it was a lot of fun going back to this game with an older perspective, because I hadn't really replayed it in a long time, and I first played it back in like 2009. And so to go back to it with this much older adult perspective, it was just super interesting. There were so many things I didn't notice or didn't pay attention to with the story, and it held up really well. What did you think of it?
So, flashback to Michelle 10 years ago. I had a group of friends that were really in love with pretty much the world of Final Fantasy VII. And I say that as in like because they were playing a lot of the spin-off games. There was like Crisis Core, and I know they watched the movie, which we did as well, this year.
Yeah, we made a point to watch Advent Children after we were finished with the game.
Right, and I can't remember what the other spin-off game. There was Crisis Core.
George of Cerberus.
That's what it is.
The one where you play as Vincent.
Yes. And me not caring too much about spoilers at that time, because I never thought I was going to play these games. I never thought I was going to end up playing any Final Fantasy game, and then I'm with you. So, obviously I knew, major character deaths. I kind of had a gist of some of like Vincent's lore. Mm-hmm. Like vague, like little memories of just hearing the osmosis of what my friends were talking about.
And then like Vinny with the Gungaga thing, like
I did ask you, I was like, does the Gungaga thing happen in this game? Apparently it happens in Crisis Core.
But it's still a place we visit, and you're like, oh, Gungaga, like, what do you know about this obscure little town in the middle of nowhere in this game?
I was like, I know what Gungaga was.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, even knowing some of the story, it still didn't prepare me for how I was actually going to feel when it happened. Because, like, the one scene started to unfold, and I looked at you, and I'm like, it's about to happen. And you were like you wouldn't tell me. And I'm like, I know this. You're, like, but I was more so surprised at how early it happened. I think like my notes say that, I really enjoyed this game. I really like all the characters. I think a game does really well when there's a large group of characters that you associate with and you like every single one of them. I think it's really important. Cause like you get characters that you don't remember or you don't care about, or this one's really fucking annoying. And even though we had Kate Sith, I liked his character.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't find him annoying. I just found him quirky and kind of like a little shit. But I'm glad he was a part of the squad kind of thing. And
yeah, gameplay wise, he's useless, but in terms of the story, it wouldn't have been the same without, because he added some drama to it. He added some tension to it, and then when you know who like Reeve is behind the scenes, it's like even he's kind of a likable character.
Yeah, and I mean, I liked the pacing of it. Even though I was really surprised about how soon one of the major deaths were. I really like Cloud.
Yeah.
He like really good boy, deserves the best. A lot of the things that happened to him, he didn't really choose.
Yeah.
It just kind of was thrust upon him. But overall, I really enjoyed the game. I miss my wife.
Yeah.
I miss her a lot.
So it's weird because obviously this game has a reputation of being the game that popularized JRPGs in the West.
I did not know that.
And it's largely credited as that because there were plenty of JRPGs like on the Super Nintendo, but this set a precedent of JRPGs are these big, over-the-top, long games with these beautiful pre-rendered cutscenes and like visuals like you had never seen before. The reason that Final Fantasy VII didn't go from the Super Nintendo to the N64 was because the CD space allowed them to do those pre-rendered cutscenes. And it really kind of set a precedent for what JRPGs were going to be forever after. But when you hear people talk about the game in hindsight, they're just like, oh man, those graphics with those pre-rendered cutscenes, there sure was nothing like that back in the day. And they don't really get into like the substance of what makes the game good. And I'm still remarkably pleased at how well it holds up all these years later. And being able to look at the story events in a new context with an adult mind, it changes so many of the implications. And I just think it holds up really well. And one of the things that didn't set well with me when I first played it was the ending. Because all of the other Final Fantasy games in the series have a very conclusive ending. And it seems like they're kind of 50-50 on whether or not it's a happy ending or not. 7 was the only one that did a relatively speaking, very abrupt, like almost cliffhanger ending. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm satisfied, but I know there's also like a movie and a bunch of other shit that I can consume to kind of soften the blow of the abruptness of that ending. But in actuality, when you look at it, when you're paying attention to the themes of the story, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because the game does have a very on-the-nose, like, environmentalist message. And if that was the goal of the story, literally the message of the story is if you take care of the planet, it will take care of you. Yes. And that's literally what happens. And so it is the ending makes perfect sense if you're paying attention to the context of the story up to that point. And so yeah, it's a perfect little game that in no way ever needed a sequel or a movie or a remake or anything. And it's good that it never got those things, right?
I'm going to play and watch all of it.
Yeah.
So, Crisis Core is now on the Switch.
Yeah.
So, it's obvious that that's the next thing I'm going into.
A more faithful remake than what this game got. So...
I'm still going to play the remake and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, the less said about the remake, the better.
Right.
We are gonna play it one day.
I don't have an opinion on it because I haven't played it.
Yeah, but we are going to play it one day, but the less said about that right now, the better.
Yes.
What else do you...
So I think the first game I beat this year was this one. Y'all are going to find out really quick that my life this year was, all Pokemon. So this game came out January this year. It was a pretty early game, and I really like this game. I like the idea of a region that I love personally. Sinnoh is one of my favorite regions. Getting a kind of like a past Sinnoh view, and I always love regional variants, and it's like weirdly open world, but not. And there's like, I love the catching mechanism. I like the story. The first part was probably the part I hated the most. It was a lot of the hand holding, like let's drag you through the story before we let you go. But I will say the final plot twist boss at the very, very end after post game, I thought it was very clever. Given who their ancestor was, it kind of sets you up for a bamboozle, in my opinion, because you're more apt to trust this character, and then they're not trustworthy. They were not trustworthy. But it was also one of the most fun fights I had in the game, because like battling isn't really that impressive in this game, because obviously this game is more like catch Pokemon. Which I liked. I liked all of it. I liked the characters. I like shiny hunting in this game. I felt like it was very, if you wanted like a beginner's version of shiny hunting, that I think this is a very good game to do beginners. On a side note, I like the fact that the overworld gives you shiny noises when you see a shiny Pokemon.
Yeah.
That will become relevant later.
Is that the only game thus far to do that?
So because no other game has the open world where you can see it, because I don't think in the open world in Sword and Shield, and y'all can correct me because I don't remember, you can find shinies like that. You would have to run into them and they would show up shiny.
Okay.
So no other, and then obviously they make the little shiny noises when
in
you
the rest of the series, you run into it and it's like the whole effect when you
you get the jingle. So this is the first game to do overworld sprites that were shiny, and it made a noise, and that's important for a reason. So that was my game. That was the first game I beat this year on my own, and I liked it.
Next up, I have the Castlevania collection came in from Limited Run Games. I got the Bloodlines edition. I think is the one I got. It comes in a larger package than this. It's meant to look like a Genesis box because Bloodlines was released on the Genesis originally, and this collection has basically all of the first generation of Castlevania games. So it's got 1 through 4, Bloodlines, the 2 Game Boy ones, and then Kid Dracula, which I've never played, but I've heard it's actually really good.
Did you play it?
No, Kid Dracula, not yet.
Okay.
So this was the first time, I'm mentioning this because this is the first time I have ever actually properly beaten Castlevania 1. And it's hard as balls, as most NES games are, and it has a reputation as that being the case. I did have to, save scum a little bit to abuse the save states feature, so I could actually refight the Grim Reaper with the double shot or the triple shot. Because if you die, you lose all that, and the fight becomes. Oh, we do have a bingus now. The fight becomes much harder. When you have to fight him with nothing, and so. Most people that play the game casually or that do speed runs complete that whole level and beat the boss in one go. Because if they die on the boss, then they restart before the boss, but with none of their items, and then it's much harder than it already was. So finally beat Castlevania 1. It was very rewarding to do so, even if I did technically save scum a little bit to do it.
Sometimes you have to do what you gotta do.
Yeah, and then. Castlevania 4 and Bloodlines are the ones I mainly care about in that collection, but very nice to have a physical copy of all of those, so I don't have to worry about emulators or old carts that are 30 years old or anything like that. Do you want me to do another one since you have
your stack is much bigger than mine?
Yeah. So I guess I'll talk about the 2 Transformers games that I did for their respective videos. Because obviously you guys can go and watch those videos. Also, I thought that I thought I had taken the Crazy Game Trader sticker off of the Armada game. I didn't. You can barely read it because it's so old.
You paid $12 for it?
Yeah, it's still only worth about $15 or so secondhand. I think actually Steel Collectibles got a copy of this recently. So you see this very rarely in the wild. It's not a very common game, but it's not expensive regardless.
This is the one with the tiny bots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's going to be either the best or the second best game in the entire retrospective. Honestly, it's pretty tough to beat. What made replaying this for the video so rewarding was the fact that I went back and did it on the hardest difficulty, which is something I've been trying to do since I've owned the game, so 15-ish years. I always thought that it was going to be something that I could never do or could never commit to doing because it was going to be too hard. But I sure as hell did it on this playthrough. And when I started working on the video essay and recording the footage, I wasn't 100% certain that I could do it. I just was figuring it out as I went along. I never played it on the Commander difficulty before. And I played up, I think, to the third stage on Commander difficulty before recording, and then restarted from the beginning and said, it wasn't that hard, I think I can do this. And then I had a lot of trouble with like the last two bosses, and as I showcased in the video, but finally beating them after like however many tries was a hell of a feeling. So not only was that a really fun video essay to make, but it was really fun. It was a personal accomplishment to me to break this game on its hardest difficulty. And then the other one, the movie game, replaying this on the PS3 was nice as opposed to the PS2. God, the last part of it, the last part of the Decepticon campaign is just so excruciating. Like, the game overall is fun in small chunks, but man, that last part, especially most people that have played it know, like the last two bosses of the Decepticon campaign, like it's so padded and so tedious, and I just was hating myself by the end of that. Really funny story. So I'll mention this when I do the Revenge of the Fallen video. But apparently the dub director, the ADR director for this game, is the guy who plays Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies.
What?
And he's also like in Star Wars now, and I'm like, and he never did a ADR director role in a video game before or since. It's the most random thing ever. So I don't know if somebody in Wikipedia, like somebody's like editing the Wikipedia just to troll or whatever, but it showed up on the Twitter account, Crazy Ass Moments in Transformers, which is a great Twitter account if you need to follow that.
So my being has decided that I can't hold Shinx, that she wants to be in the lap.
She's like, none Shinx, only
None
Mingus.
Shinx. Shinx can still be in the frame though. So I guess it's my turn.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the next game, I didn't play this game. I watched a Let's Play. I watched Manly Badass Heroes playthrough of Amori. Which is, RPG game. It's got a very charming art style. It kind of reminds me of like sketchbook drawings and like ink pen drawings, like, specifically like the ballpoint blue pen drawings. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed it. And it's like one of those games where it looks so whimsical and fun, but it actually has like a really heartbreaking story at the end. I cried. I really liked the characters. I found it very fascinating on how they portrayed how kids can handle trauma. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very interesting way of portraying trauma on a situation and handling guilt and grief, and on all of the characters' parts. That's my hand. You just decided to poke? Don't do that.
She mad.
She poked me. But I think it's I have to give it props because it does. Each character gets affected differently by a death, and it's weirdly implied that this character, in like the first part, that this character is no longer with when you're in like the dream space versus the real world. because you do back and forth basically. I think Space Boyfriend deserved better.
Yeah. The one part of when you were watching the Let's Play and I would walk in the room, or if I was on the floor like sorting cards or whatever, that I remember was the one boss fight with like the princess girl who's doing like
yes,
that whole thing, and how the music slapped in that boss fight.
So that I'm glad you brought the music in this game is really brilliant. I like it a lot, and it actually is very important because it does have a little bit of theme. There's like a ending at the very end that the truth is revealed and like the resolve, and there's like a scene where it's probably one of the most beautiful sounding things in a game I've heard in a while, and in a recent game that I've heard in a while. And I mean, I remember watching it and just sobbing. Like, first of all, you hit me with like sibling stuff, and I always have like, I'm an older sister, and I love my little brother. He's kind of like, he's a turd, but I love him. And we've always been close all of our lives because we're 14 months apart. And so this game kind of hit the heartstrings just right with those kind of themes. So that final scene just destroyed me 100% wholeheartedly. And it ends very open-ended. So you don't really know how everybody reacts to the truth of the story. You just see the two main characters kind of having relief that the truth finally is revealed, but you don't know how the other characters reacted. And I kind of like that interpretation, because you can imagine it can be pretty much whatever you would want it to be. And I think sometimes that's all right to do. I think the two that were affected the most, having their closure was probably the more important aspect of the game. If you get like the true ending, because I forget this is also a game that has more than one.
Yeah.
More than one ending, depending on what you do. But I liked it. It made me feel, so that's why it gets mentioned, even though I didn't play it. Any game that makes me feel like that is automatically gets recommended. Not to mention, like Mother 3 last year got mentioned.
Yeah,
that made me feel a lot too.
Those games have a lot in common as far as like they're very much an experience type of game. Yes. Where it's all about the emotional roller coaster and the way it makes you feel.
I don't like any game. Like, I like emotional attachment to characters. I think it's I think you'll find with me, like, I like characters and story a lot more than gameplay. Mm-hmm. The gameplay was very interesting in this game, but I can't say too much about it because I didn't play this game. But it looked fun and interesting. But you know, play it. I think there was like a limited run of physical copies of it. I know one of my friends has a physical copy.
Oh, I may have to look into that.
Amori. I don't know if it was limited or whatnot, but you can play it on the Switch. You can play it on PC. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I may have to look into the physical copies and see how they were distributed.
Yeah, or, ask Dustin, because he's the one that has it.
Okay. I guess I'll do that on Saturday then.
Yeah, we'll be over there.
So the next game that I finished, and I guess we haven't really talked about YouTuber stuff that much in this video yet. I mean, you mentioned you watched his Let's Play of that. But yeah. But I'm gonna tell the story of how I got sucked into this. So two YouTube content creators have been watching the shit out of this year for shorter videos of like 30 minutes to 45 minute videos. Has been Civi, who talks about first person shooters exclusively, particularly older ones, and then Mandalore Gaming, who talks about a wide variety of games, including real-time strategy games that a lot of other people don't talk about. That's his niche, like how Muso is for mine. And so Civi made a video about a immersive sim type game called Cruelty Squad and I've probably rewatched that video essay like 5 or 6 times because this game is just so interesting to me. But then Mandalore, I've rewatched his videos about System Shock 1 and 2, and that got me on this big immersive sim kick. And so I was like playing around in like New Game Plus in BioShock to see what you could do in New Game Plus, like what stuff carried over from, because the original Xbox 360 version of BioShock never had New Game Plus, so I think it was something added to the later PS3 release, and then the HD remaster that we played last year. So I was like playing around in BioShock, looking at New Game Plus, and then I put in Dishonored. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to goof around in Dishonored a little bit. And then before I knew it, I was halfway through another playthrough of it. And I played it again from beginning to end. And I was like, hell, how did I end up here? And so
I wasn't even a part of it.
Yeah, but you need to at some point. So I can't go too much into it because
no spoilers.
This is a game I do want us to play together soon.
Yes.
I'm holding up the Xbox One Dishonored Definitive Edition, but actually what I did, and probably the reason they got me to play it, was Bethesda released this Arcane Studios collection, which has Dishonored 1 and 2, Dishonored Death of the Outsider, and the 2017 Prey. And all these games are great, and everybody should own this, but I replayed Dishonored 1. I hadn't replayed it in several years, probably not since Dishonored 2 came out. I don't think I've gone back to Dishonored 1 since, so it's been at least since 2016, which is 6 years now at this point, good lord. Which means we've been making videos together for 6 years now at this point at least, but
we're getting close to year 7, yeah.
Yeah.
We've now been 2 years married.
But this was a high chaos run where I killed everybody, and I don't usually play the game that way. And I've done more low chaos, like save everybody runs, than I have the other way around. And so the playing it this way was interesting because I made a point to like read all of the books in the environment and read all the journals, which really provides a lot of context for what's going on. And with the context of those little books and journals that you can read in the environment, plus the events that happen in high chaos, you really get this vibe that I didn't pick up on before, that the Mark of the Outsider is very much this curse more than it is a blessing, and that it's kind of one of those things where just despair and misery follows in your wake wherever you go with this curse. And it's very much one of those things where the outsider is perceived by a lot of people in this world and is perceived as a very malevolent force, and that you are probably not safe or not long for this world having been associated with him. So, but it is very interesting, and that's one of those that I think I also want to play with Kat as well, because they both really enjoy. Well, I mean,
Kat really likes.
Kat's big on decision, like RPGs with decision making and stuff like that. And Dishonored is an immersive sim type of game. It's a first person RPG, but it doesn't have like stats or any kind of like min maxing or anything like that. It's all just based on horizontal progression of you unlock a new power, you unlock a new thing to do in the game. So very much looking forward to. I'm checking my list here is what I'm looking at. I just have like a pile on the floor now, like everything is getting disorganized. So.
Oh yeah.
I own a lot of JRPGs, as I made very clear in that video, but finishing them can be such a huge time sink, and I'm really quite ashamed at how many of them are still unfinished. So when I finish one, it's a pretty big accomplishment to me. Like I really like finishing one, especially because like nothing gets me like quite like teared up like finishing a long RPG, because it's such a long and meaningful experience, and it's like you really feel like you embarked on this long journey with these characters and everything. But I finally finished Radiant Historia, and this is the 3DS remake, Perfect Chronology. And so I originally started this game back in, I don't know, who cares, 2014, something like that probably, and on the original DS. and I got turned on to the game because a Let's Player who I watch, who does a bunch of JRPG Let's Plays, H.C. Bailey, he was playing it, and he said it was one of his favorite games of all time, second only to like Final Fantasy IV. And that's a big deal coming from him because he's played so many JRPGs and is honestly very critical of a lot of them. And he is a hardcore like completionist with his Let's Plays. Go subscribe if you haven't already. He is like this close to reaching 100,000. I don't know how much longer he's going to keep doing this. He's been doing it for like 15 years. I just want him to get to 100,000 subscribers before he retires, please. But so I followed his. He was doing a Let's Play of the first Radiant Historia, and then the remake got announced. So I stopped playing that version and started again on this version when it came out in 2018. Put it down a couple times, picked it back up, and finally, I was like, I'm going to finish it this year. I'm going to finally finish it, and I finally did. Loved it. It was great. It's a time travel story, but not one like Chrono Trigger, where you just go to different time periods, and that's it. It's more of you have created this irreconcilable schism between two timelines, and now you have to juggle back and forth events between the two timelines. And there's a lot of events where it's like, hey, we were too late to do anything in this timeline to stop this event from happening. Let's go to the other timeline, or let's say somebody died in this timeline. Let's go to the other timeline where they are still alive and get information from them then. And it's like,
you remember you telling me about that and me being like, that's really
it's
interesting.
really fascinating.
Yeah.
And
I think that's really neat. I think that's an interesting concept.
yeah, and there's a lot of there's a million different bad endings which are kind of required to get as a process of elimination of figuring out the different routes. And H.C. Bailey's comment, which I'll echo here as well, is like, wow, a JRPG where the characters are actually useful for a change. And he's like, imagine JRPG protagonists that are actually competent and smart and make good decisions. And like, you don't play some teenage villager who stumbles upon his magical destiny in this game. You play as a spy. You are a experienced combat veteran in a important military operation between these two warring nations. And so already you're a character that knows what they're doing and is super competent, and you get surrounded by other characters that are that way as well. And I don't know, it's just such a refreshing take on an RPG, and the combat is super interesting because the enemies are on a 3x3 grid, and when certain attacks can move them around to different spaces on the grid, and where that comes up is you can have, let's say, character A move a unit and character B hit a unit, and now all three of them are on the same tile, so character C casts a spell which hits all of them at once on the same tile.
Oh, that's interesting.
And stuff like that. The 3DS version also added yet another story route, which gives you the perfect ending. I think it's called the golden ending or something like that, which ties up some loose ends from the original game's ending and redeems a lot of the characters. It actually redeems the main villain, which is like a really cool idea. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing this a lot with a lot of RPGs lately, where it's like you'll have the main game up to the ending and the credits roll, and then past the ending is even more content that is story related, like how Dragon Quest XI is like,
yes,
there's a whole nother arc after the ending,
which I still need to finish.
Yeah, and Dragon Quest IV did that as well. Same thing, where it's like the credits roll, but there's another arc where the villain redeems himself and becomes one of your party members and gets to fight the actual final boss with you, and it's really cool.
Speaking of village boys that have their destiny thrusted upon them,
Mm-hmm.
I finished Echoes this year, which is really interesting because I remember playing it when it came out, and I remember it being Momokan and me playing it at night when everyone was sleeping. And then I never picked it back up, and I can't remember which Momokan it was that I did that for. I think it was like in the year that it came out. 2017,
yeah.
That's probably right. Yeah, and I just...
Because it would have come out that same month. May of 2017 is when it came out.
Yeah, and I remember playing it, and I didn't get far because I basically restarted it. I started over. I think it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Out of the ones I've played, because there's a lot of Fire Emblem games I haven't played, but so far this is one of my favorites. I adore all the characters. These two are on our cosplay list. I love Celica. I like her because she's just, I don't know, she's just incredible. She's competent. She still has that in touch with her emotions and can be emotional, but still super strong and just a go-getter.
Yeah.
And her team was really fun. I did not pick Sonya on purpose, which I know everybody picks Sonya. I like Dean.
So I ended up picking Dean because I thought if you go to the map that character is on, you recruit them.
No.
But no, by going to Sonya's map, you end up fighting her and killing her and therefore getting Dean. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
That was
Actually,
not your intention.
Yeah, I don't necessarily... Do you kill her? I guess you do. I don't remember.
It doesn't,
but-
I don't think. Which, also, the only support that Jenny gets, gone. If you
Yeah.
pick Dean, Jenny doesn't get any supports, which I think that's my biggest complaint about this game is that you have the option for supports, but there's not a lot of them.
Yeah.
And there's so many quirky characters that I would have enjoyed seeing how they interacted with each other, especially when Alm and Celica's like there's enough time for them to have some interactions with. My other thing is that this has DLC that I probably will never get.
Yeah, because
And
we
it's a-
can't... Because Nintendo being absolute assholes about the eShop, yeah.
Yeah, which means there are 4 characters I'll never get, and a whole part of the story, so I have no idea. I'm really sad about that.
I played it without that stuff too, and I still love it.
Yeah, no, it's not that it's not necessary. It's more so that I kind of wish I could. But overall, I really enjoyed this game. I'm stupid that it took me this long to finish it, and I don't know what hit me. I know what it was. With me and Ollie were talking a lot about like Fire Emblem and playing around with our OCs and Fire Emblem setting, and I was like, what will get me like the creativity, blood flowing on designing Fire Emblem stuff. Play, and I hadn't finished this one, so this is how it got happening. This is how it happened.
So this is my... So if Blazing Sword and Radiant Dawn are like tied for my favorite Fire Emblem game, then this is number 2 then by default. Because I love the shit out of this game. And I'm going to sound really contentious here, and I don't want this to turn into a discussion. I don't want this to turn into a discussion about the upcoming newest game. So I'm just going to say that right now. But I will say this in a vacuum is that, to me, this is what Fire Emblem should be, and it is a shame that it will probably never be like this again. Because
Yeah,
it has the best art style,
I love
the
this art
best
style.
the best like character art.
No game will ever have Matilda.
They experimented around with like the dungeon crawling where you kind of walk around on the overworld and explore dungeons and stuff. The combat was a little bit more simple than Fates before it. A little bit of a step back, but it was to kind of align it with the game it was being remade from, Gaiden.
Yeah,
And
it is a remake.
it is such a perfect like remake while being a step forward in design. It's incredible.
This
and
is
it's
what
like,
remake should be like.
and it's so sad that if to the degree to which it got ignored, it probably got ignored because it didn't have
Marriage.
they didn't have the marriage mechanic, or it didn't have I don't know.
And I mean-
Something that Awakening and Fates and Three Houses had that this game doesn't have.
Well,
and
Three Houses does not have marriage.
yeah,
You can get married at the very end, but it's not.
but there's different things that people derive value from when they enjoy Fire Emblem, and I don't mean to. I'm not going to cast any judgment on anybody for what they like the series for.
Because they're all
But-
correct.
But I hate when people dog on one of these games for the support conversations. because they probably started with Awakening, where the support conversations are dynamic, and there's support conversations with every possible combination of characters. And they play a game like Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, like, oh, well, the support conversations are so obtuse, and you can't get some of them, and some of them are just not very good. And I'm like, but there's so many other aspects to this game that are enjoyable. Just play it for a different reason than that, please.
When I say that, I more so mean I like these characters, and I'm just like, how would so-and-so interact? Like, I feel like these two would have interesting dynamics. Because that's the one thing about Awakening that I didn't like, is that everybody had supports with everybody, and some of them just sucked.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't need to interact, but in this game,
some
of them needed to interact.
And I feel like a lot of the characters are really fleshed out in this game.
Well, but it's not that because they need to be fleshed out. It's just I want to see what
they have to say to each other,
antics they have, because there's so many possibility for just antics.
Yeah, but there's so much other good shit in this game. Like, it has great like political and social commentary about like classism, and it has like political intrigue, and it has a pretty straightforward story, but it does subvert your expectations towards the end a little bit. And I'm just like, man, it is such a good game, such a good strategy RPG, and a good Fire Emblem game, and it is a shame that the series will probably never do this again.
Yeah, it's really sad, but I like this game. It's probably up there on my favorites. You know, Awakening is also one that I liked a lot, so those two are probably like my top two right now until I play other games and determine, because your favorites is only what you've played. So there's a lot that I need to play. So right now, these two are my favorites.
So I'm going to go through three really quick to kind of, because two is really quick.
Yeah, because I have two more games and then two honorable mentions.
Yeah.
I forgot it upstairs, but two honorable mentions. Three.
So the limited run physical printing of Quake came in, and technically I played through all of the Quake remaster last year, but this year I was waiting on the physical print to come in. I haven't even opened this, it's still sealed, but I've still played the downloaded copy of it from last year. But I played through the Scourge of Armageddon expansion, which I'd never played before. And that was one that was made back in the day when the game was new. But there's even more new levels added to this from Machine Games, the people who made the new Wolfenstein games. And it's pretty good. Scourge of Armageddon was pretty good. The pacing of the combat was very different compared to the main game. And there's so many like devious traps in this game. There was so much like stopping and going to figure out if something was gonna if a wall was going to collapse, or if the floor was going to give in to lava or something stupid like that. Like, there was a lot of crap like that. But overall, Scourge of Armageddon was pretty good, and I'm highly looking forward to playing the even newer levels, the machine game levels. And then, obviously, I played Dynasty Warriors 2 for the Muso video. I think I said it best in the Muso video, where I'm like, if I had just gotten home with my PS2 and this is one of the launch games that I'd gotten, I probably would be fine with it, because it is fun, but it's one of those where it artificially expands the lifespan of itself by being hard, because you're going to fail over and over and over again before you even beat the first one of any of the levels. And it's remarkable how much of the Muso template really did start in that first game, and how that first game has kept all of these mechanics that are just commonplace throughout the Muso genre to this day. But I don't really recommend it. It has aged very poorly, and it's hard. It's not like the later Dynasty Warriors games, or frankly any of the other Muso games, where they actually expect you to win. Enemies will just cheap shot you in the back and just take most of your health down without you really having a fighting chance, and it has not been the best experience. So after I started dealing with job drama, and I had more free time in my hands, I went through and finished this game, which I had also started, I think, in 2020, because this game kind of flew under my radar when it first came out. And then I picked up a copy in 2020 and finally got around to playing it now. And that is Control from Remedy. So a lot of people have been talking more and more about this game. It's definitely like it's a cult classic in the making. So, and now Esther has a spring, and of course, she would never do that if we weren't recording. But
That's not fair. The spring, yes.
so. Control is, I explained it this way. I said it's Max Payne if it took place inside the SCP Society. And it is, a lot of people have described it as, the back rooms, the game, where it's like liminal spaces and weird, trippy shit.
I was about to say, this is the game that was like real, you showed me.
Yeah,
it's super trippy.
It's a whacked out acid trip. And
it's interesting.
It's actually kind of a middle market title, like low budget title. And that actually works for an indoor setting, because if you think about like an office building, you're going to have gray, boring walls, and you're going to have the same equipment, office building equipment in every room kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's what they do. But you don't...
You know what this makes me think of?
What?
You know, like when you're dreaming and you like open up a door and it is like a familiar door. Like you go through like your bedroom door and then like there's more of the room than what is actually there. Like I think there was one during my head where I opened up the door and it was like tall, fully glass building that was attached that I could see through like a different door, and I'm like, that's not my house. Mm-hmm. This isn't my house. That's what that makes me think of. This is somebody that has dreams where they open doors in their house and there's like more house.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like, and it is definitely not a game for people that are claustrophobic, because you spend the entire game inside. You never see a shred of sunlight for the entire game.
Jesus.
And so it has a weird horror aspect to it, but it is more kind of like it's a specific kind of horror of like you're second guessing your own perception, and it's not like you're being necessarily chased by scary monster kind of things. The combat, I think, the first part of the game is a little bit slow to get started. Once you get more of your powers, it starts getting really good. But the combat suffers from a couple of things, and really it was Racevic that pointed this out in his video, where he said that the unfortunate part with all the powers they give you is that the best option for combat still ends up being just picking shit up and throwing it at enemies. And you can, even if there's no objects around you, you can always like rip a piece of concrete out of the ground and throw it at an enemy. So there's always something for you to pick up and throw. And it's always the most powerful solution, is picking something up and just throwing it at enemies. It's always the most powerful attack. You'll use it all the time. The game does get a little bit harder later in the game, which was kind of rewarding. And the balance of like the cool powers with like the shield and the levitation and everything, it's all cool, but like I said, most of the time you're just gonna be picking stuff up and throwing it at people. And it's a giant Remedy in-joke. Like there's a lot of Remedy inside references, so it's really a love letter to their older games, and it's best enjoyed if you're already familiar with like the Max Payne games and Alan Wake and Quantum Break, and it's got a lot of charm to it. I would definitely recommend it, especially because there's like a definitive edition now that has DLC, or you can get the standard edition for very, very cheap. If you can get that version for cheap, I would highly, highly recommend it. What else you got?
So here's more of my Oops All Pokemon. I finished Brilliant Diamond, and by finished, I got to post-game, so that's all of post-game, because apparently to get to certain parts of post-games, you have to have, like, the Pokedex completed, which I totally forgot about that. There probably, out of all your friends, wasn't a person more excited about a Sinnoh remake than me. Mm-hmm. That had been asking for a Sinnoh remake, because, again, my Pokemon history was when this game came out, I had a whole neighborhood of friends playing, and I love Diamond, Pearl, Platinum so much. It is still nostalgic favorite kind of thing. Platinum is probably one of my favorite Pokemon games, but it's a remake. and it's okay. And I think that's really, like, it's kind of like bittersweet to say it like that. It is a true remake of
Diamond and Pearl.
Diamond and Pearl.
And exactly Diamond and Pearl,
And
not Platinum.
Exactly Diamond and Pearl. Not that I think a Platinum remake would have made any difference. They probably still would have probably left out the Broader Frontier, which has like been my biggest complaints about this remake and the Ruby Sapphire ones, even though it's Emerald, but
No Battle Frontier?
yeah.
It's just missing altogether?
It's missing altogether in Oros, which I know people are like, it's supposed to be Ruby and Sapphire, not Emerald, but there's Emerald stuff in it, so that's my argument. I think I wish this had a little bit more of the Oros treatments. I would have loved some revamped character designs for characters that I love. Not that I don't think they're already perfect already, but I think it's just kind of fun to, you know, get a fresh paint of what newer Pokemon designs have been like, because they've changed since this game came out. They've like slowly improved and add some really bomb ass versions. One of the major changes that they did was the underground, though, and I will say, very good. I had a lot of fun in the underground. And I really hate that's as much as I can say about this game, because I really did want a remake, and I did enjoy it for what it was, but it did leave me wanting more, and I think that's about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't feel like going. There's a lot of I don't feel like going back to post game stuff and doing it, because I mean, I did it in Diamond a long time ago, and I just don't feel like doing it in this.
So the next one that I finished while not working, I got this remaster as well in 2020, I believe, and started it, and I was actually playing it like fairly consistently, but like I hit a wall where I couldn't figure out where I was going, and then I picked it back up again this year and just played it all the way through to the end.
You did beat it.
And that is the He-Ho, the remake of SMT Nocturne, which I was very, very excited about, because this is a game where finishing this for me was very triumphant, because I was always afraid back in the day that I would never be able to finish the PS2 version. It's an RPG that I love, but fans of this series always hype them up as being really, really hard and really, really points to Jack Frost.
Do you think there's a plushie?
There absolutely is. There's many of them.
You mean I can have a He-Ho?
Yeah.
I want one!
They actually, one of the SMT games came with a plushie of him. I just don't have that version.
I need him.
Yeah.
I need a He-Ho.
Okay, we will work on getting a Jack Frost plushie.
He-Ho.
So most people hype these games up as really, really hard or really, really unforgiving, and one of the game RPG series where you can get yourself into a dead end by building your character wrong, and you run into a boss that can just exploit your weakness and just wipes the floor with you. Well, this remake rebalanced the difficulty of this game a lot to where it was a lot more approachable, whereas I believe the PS2 version was based off of the Japanese lunatic mode version or whatever, so it was inherently harder than it needed to be. And this lets you pick between the Japanese vanilla version, the lunatic mode, and a newer easy mode, which is pretty cool. Having finally finished this after all these years, I kind of have to say that the story was a little underwhelming. And I don't mean that as in the story was bad. I just mean that it's more about you and the impact you have on this world than it is the individual, the events in the story or even the world itself. And I reached a point very quickly. So, like, to kind of give a little brief synopsis, so magic bullshit happens, and all of Tokyo ends up in this spherical pocket dimension thing, and you're basically living in like a post-apocalypse world inside that pocket dimension where everybody except for a handful of your friends are dead, and they're like little spirits that are wandering around and it's like up to you to sort of reshape the world in your image kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so you have the opportunity to ally yourself with a bunch of other characters who have a different moral opinion about, or they hold different values with which they want to reshape the world with, and you have to ally yourself with one of them that you believe is the correct path to reshape the world as. And I think I went with the neutral ending, which is just to put it back the way it was kind of thing, which I was very happy with. But while you're walking through this big spherical extra-dimensional desert hellhole, and you're talking to all the NPCs that are spirits and ghosts or whatever, none of them have anything interesting to say. Not even a little bit. Like, none of them have any interesting dialogue. And none of it contributes to the story. So I eventually just got tired of talking to the wandering souls. I'm like, I'm not going to fucking talk to you guys because none of you have anything useful to say. And I don't really like the mannequin people. Like, they're just weird. They do the weird little, like, twitchy things, like, when you talk to them. And I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about you guys. So there were parts of the story that didn't really resonate with me. But, like, the last act of it was really good when you're finally starting to confront all the other characters and get to those really critical moral alignments. Gameplay was amazing. I had a really awesome party of like epic level characters from mythology. I got to fist fight Thor, which was great. I got to fist fight Thor twice actually, and I had Skahak on my team. I had Parvati on my team, who is an absolute MVP. Healed you like a motherfucker. What else? I did not get the Dante DLC, so it was not featuring Dante
I
from
was
Devil
going to
May
say,
Cry.
it's not featuring Dante from
Yeah.
Devil May Cry?
It could be, but he's DLC in this one instead of being built in. The character that's in his place is Raido Kuzunoa from the other SMT games, which is fine. It's like, give or take. But but I will say about this HD remaster that is extremely disappointing, and it was the only thing I wanted out of a remaster of this game, was to fix the audio compression on the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't even do that. They let you play other SMT games OSTs as, like, you can download the soundtrack from other SMT games and play them over this game, but you couldn't just fix the soundtrack in this game because the CD release of this game's official soundtrack sounds clean, and you can hear what the clean versions of these tracks sound like. So you couldn't just add like an MP3 file to the game to let the clean version of the soundtrack play over the gameplay. Like, it blows my mind that they did not fix the one thing that was wrong with the original version. And it is such a shame because this game has a banger soundtrack. Other than that, I can't recommend it enough. Very happy to finally have finished it. There's Dinosaur Warriors too. So we had it was for our anniversary, I think it was,
Let's
right?
for our anniversary.
We decided just to have a game night where we would share, and we've been talking about doing this for a long time, where we would share 2 games with each other that were both platforming franchises that we grew up with, but the other person had no experience with whatsoever. So I said, I will play a Sonic game if you will play a Ratchet & Clank game.
Yes.
And so we put in Sonic Adventure DX on the GameCube, and I made you play the first Ratchet & Clank on the PS3 HD remaster. So what did you think of what little you've played of Ratchet & Clank
I
so
like
far?
it. So Ratchet & Clank was always a game that I wanted to play, and for whatever reason never played as a kid. But I remember always wanting to play it. It's really fun. It has a little bit of like the collecting thing that I like. I just think it's cute. It's fun. Like, I really did enjoy it, and I can't wait to play more. That being said, how do you feel about Sonic Adventure?
The gameplay was a little bit more jank than I was expecting. I think specifically to the thing that I have to get used to is that when you're in the middle of like a really, really fast movement, how easy it is to just screw that up and then you come to a dead stop. And so I'm like, other than that, it was fine. I think the casino level was very memorable.
Yes, the casino one is one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah, all the music and the Sonic pinball bullshit, like all that was really memorable. So
Yeah, the music's really good now. It's stuck in my head, but
Yeah.
yeah. I'm glad you like it so far. It is jank. It is Sonic Adventure, so it is a little jank.
part of that was like leading up to that was me playing the Ratchet and Clank HD collection just to, I don't know, make sure the save files are working or brush up on the game or whatever. And I ended up playing through the entirety of Going Commando, the second game, from beginning to end. It was just like with Dishonored, where I'm like, I started, I'm like, ah, hell.
I didn't realize
really,
you did that.
I'm really having a good time. So I played that from beginning to end on the HD collection. And this physical, so the original PS2 copies are with my brother, and this copy actually came from Chris. So I had my copy of the first game and the second game came from Chris, which was getting rid of some games in his collection. So I have a nice clean copy for the collection of both the first and second game. I'm looking for a nice clean PS2 Black Label copy of the third one, and I'll hold off until I find one that looks really good condition. But the second and third, I mean, I love the whole original trilogy, but the second and third Ratchet and Clank games are some of my favorite games of all time. And I am really impressed by how well these games have aged. And I always said that the second game had the worst or the least impressive story out of the three, where it's basically the whole story just seemed like a big joke because without getting into spoilers or anything, after the events of the first game, the characters get asked to go to a different galaxy to basically run a security detail for a massive mega corporation, literally called Megacorp, in this galaxy, because their new product was just hijacked by like corporate espionage bullshit. And their product is like a Furby type thing. It's it's a living creature. It's a little gremlin, creature. It's a little Karibo. So it's literally a Karibo, and it's a living animal, and it was defective, and so it will actually, when kids play with it, it gets super enraged and tries to eat them. And so then you go back to your boss at Megacorp and you're like, hey, this thing's dangerous, you need to destroy it immediately, and then the plot thickens from there. But it's like this really silly thing where you go to a planet where they are demoing this product, and it has completely taken over the entire planet. It's eating all the civilians. And so you're like killing these things in mass. It's ridiculous. And
what the hell?
So the story is very silly, and but it has. So I think, again, going back to what I was saying earlier about playing an older game with a older, more adult mindset, the humor in this game has really aged very well.
The humor in Ratchet and Clank games are...
Yeah, no, and you haven't even seen the half of it. Like, the jokes in the first game are good, but the jokes later in the series are fantastic. So, like, I'll spoil one for you that I really love, where in the third game, you are back in your original galaxy from the first game, and you're with this this team of other like hero type characters, and one of them is the daughter of the president of the galaxy.
Okay.
And so you're with her for a couple of missions, then you go to the capital and rescue the president from being attacked.
Okay.
And the president says, hey, it's good to meet you. My daughter's told me great things about you. Don't get any ideas, son. She's way out of your league. And then he's like, I think I may have a job for you. She says you're a man that's good with his hands. And he says, I swear I never... And he's like...
Oh my God!
It's really funny because like he's not talking about that, but Ratchet thinks he is. And so he's like, sir, I never did anything. And like the comedic timing of it is really funny.
Oh no.
So the humor has aged very well, and it's one of those that like they're very dated for the early 2000s, but
I love that cheese.
But it's so much better than anything they did after that, because the 2016 remake of the first game has like really bad dated humor where they talk about like hashtags and social media and stupid stuff like that. And I'm like, really? Those jokes are really going to age well. Yeah, humor was very good in All of those games.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to talk about another Oops All Pokemon. So Clinton mentioned earlier I binged a whole game in a week because I had time off. It was Scarlet. And there's a lot to be said about Scarlet. I like this game. Do I think it was perfect? Absolutely not. And I know it probably sounds like an echo chamber of everybody saying the same thing. But the bottom line is that the game is very jank. Mm-hmm. It's kind of glitchy. I've never really had Switch games crash on me before until this game. I think I had two total, and mine was mild. Like, I was very fortunate that I did not have that many glitches. My game crashed twice. I had autosave on, so I didn't really suffer the consequences too much on it. It's jank in, like, kind of a funny way, but almost in a sad way. Like, I watched a person, I'll have to get his name later, who ranked, like, all of them in different ways, and one is, like, jank funny or jank sad kind of thing, and a lot of them hit that jank sad, like, it was just, because it just, you expect better from Game Freak and from Nintendo, honestly. I think this game would have done well, with, like, maybe 6 more months of in production kind of thing. I know they like having games out for the holiday season, but sometimes it doesn't go that well, and you shouldn't do that. If you're going to postpone a Zelda game because it's not ready, you should probably do the same for Pokemon. Like, you should have those kind of standards as well. But the negatives are, it's jank. Terra raids online are practically impossible. I won't be doing them. I don't like doing them. I don't like doing the 6-star or 5-star raids to get the Herba Mysticas, which I found out the other day. It's a stupid term for HMs. Herba Mysticas. That's how you get all the different, like, climbing and flying and swimming things through the little titans, and they're called Herba Mysticas for HM. But that being said, other than those things, I think it's one of my favorite Pokemon games story-wise. It kind of has, like, 3 branches that go into one. You have, like, the Elite Four route, you have the Team Star route, which is the villain team, and then you had the Titan routes, where with 3 respective characters. I liked all 3 of those individuals a lot. I like what each route kind of led up to, and I think this game had my, like, that plot twist at the very end. It was good. It was impressive, and I think it's I can't express enough that this game story made me feel like what Pokemon is about. It's about, like, adventure, it's about friendship, it's about, like, the memories you make along the way kind of thing with, like, the characters in the story, specifically with, like, Nemona and Arven and whatnot. All the character designs are really good. The music's so good. God, the music's good in this game.
The TLDR that I heard from somebody about Scarlet and Violet was, and this is really funny, they said, it's a broken, buggy mess that should never have released in the state that it's in. It's just awful and poorly designed, and it's the most fun I've ever had playing a Pokemon game.
It really is. I like this game a lot, and I still have more to play. Another negative is that the overworld spots are shiny, but there's no noise. It is so easy to miss shinies, and I don't like that about it. Like, there's so many elements from Arceus that were so good that they should have incorporated in this game, but I think it was 2 different groups playing. But as far as I'm concerned, phones exist, emails exist. Y'all should have coordinated a little bit. It was possible. I also wanted to say, anyone that ever complained about Sword and Shield's raids, That's why you don't complain.
Yeah.
This is why.
Well, the thing is, like, it's, and I don't know how true any of this is, but it's like one thing if it's not acceptable for a game to release in a broken state, but if they at least have the attitude of we hear your feedback, we're going to patchwork this into a more acceptable state. That's another thing. But have they even discussed like patching, or are they pretending like everything is fine?
So they patched. So they did a couple patches, because apparently, and I missed this. I was very fortunate. There was a bug with the Elite Four music where the first 5 seconds kept looping. You didn't hear the whole thing, which is awful because the Elite Four music really good. And Pokemon sleeping didn't sleep
With their eyes open. Yeah.
But as far as raid battles online, awful. And it's because it is the free-for-all timer thing. It just suffers severely from glitchiness, from like Pokemon's not being involved, or your Terraform animation not happening, or you just stand there for 30 seconds not doing anything, and then all of a sudden your timer's gone. Which is a shame because I was really excited for them. I think that's the part that really missed me about it, is that I was really excited about it because honestly, I love shiny shit. When Terra's came out, I was like, this is stupid, but it's shiny and I fucking love it. But I do like the fact that Terra battles require you to have some thought process. I think with me and Ollie and Devin playing, we went up against a fairy type Mimikyu.
Oh, yikes.
And we were about to use, I think Devin was about to use Annihilate, which is a ghost fighting type, because fairies are weak against fighting types. But it was a Mimikyu, and he couldn't because he was ghost type, and it knows its ghost typing's moves. So it requires some level of thinking when you pick your typing, and I think that's really cool. I like that kind of concept with the additional Terra typing. It kind of makes for interesting. I will say I really liked all the Pokemon designs in this game. And I'm not biased because I like flamingos.
And olives.
And olives! The olive Pokemon did not stay on my team because I picked the grass type Pokemon, and really the olive being normal grass.
Yeah. But like just the total package, you got a grass Bingus.
I got a grass Bingus.
You got an olive.
I got an olive.
You got a flamingo.
I got a flamingo.
And we got our flat mud boy.
we did get and each game has like the Paradox Pokemon. That's a really cool concept to me as well. I really like the play on the past and the future, and I obviously picked Scarlet not because the professor's hot, but I do like this idiot right here. I like his design more than Miraidon, which is surprising because a lot of people like Miraidon's a lot, but his silhouette's better than Miraidon's. And people that know, it looks like a penis.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunate. But I also like the fact that he's supposed to ride around on the wheels, but he chooses not to. He runs.
Yeah, he just like leans over and lizard.
He's a lizard. He's just a good boy. Like the dragons are very Toothless-esque to me. I think, speaking of starters and their evolutions, I know a lot of people were probably upset about Sprigatito's evolution becoming what it was. And I didn't want him to be the way he was originally, but when I saw him and saw what the concept was, I was like, I like that. I want that. So I was like, yep, thank you. I love my little grass cat that's a little magician. And his little flower trick move is really cute. But I also really like the other two evolutions, which it's like Quaxable and Skeledirge. I like the theme that they were all performers, with Quaxable being the dancer, which I know a lot of people were like, fuck. But I just thought he was fun. I like his cry the most. It's just
Quack.
It's not quack. And then Fuecoco line is just cute to me. I know a lot of people have a problem with at least the middle evolution, but I like Fuecoco. I like all of them. I think that was it was a hard choice, and usually I don't ever go grass starter route. I don't typically, but it's a cat, and he turns into a magician. There's also a steel type worm.
Yeah.
We can't forget about that.
Big old-
Orthworm or whatever his name. Orthworm.
Yeah, and the
It's a fucking steel type worm, and I love him.
and the Wiglet being so like.
I
so,
don't like Wiglet.
So I love how in recent Pokemon games they have leaned away from these overly designed, overly detailed, big epic dragon looking designs, and lean more closely towards this is just a little dude. And people love that. People,
I like little
and
dudes.
It's like little, formless, detailless, smooth blob, and like that is just the design, and it's wonderful.
There was one, it's called Frigibax, I think that's how you pronounce it. And I didn't know what the Pokemon was yet. I hadn't like encountered it, but I kept seeing it in my map, and I just kept seeing the little dude, the pseudo dragon, the pseudo ice dragon, and I'm like, what is he? I need him. Like, I remember taking a picture of it and sending it to my group chat going, what the fuck is this? And I want him. And people don't like him, apparently. People don't like his design. I'm like, he's just a little guy. And I like him. And he turns into a nice Godzilla. And I think he's cool. And no pun intended, he's ice type. But he was just a little guy. And I was like, searching frantically for him, and when I finally found him, I was like, and I did spend a lot of the game not knowing what my final team was gonna look like. I think I was doing a lot of trying to complete the decks before finishing a lot of the game, which, I mean, thank God I had a week off to do that. I just opened up an Arceus.
I will have you know, I was going through the game collection, putting games away, and I was pulling games out of the wrong cases left and right a bit in the DS spot.
I want you to know, my mentality is rather them in a case than not in a case at all.
Yeah, that is definitely better, but...
But Scarlet's probably, it's really good. I think if Pokemon try pulling a game like that again, I won't support it, but not every game is gonna be a masterpiece, and I'll let one slide, but if you try to do something like that again, Game Freak, I'm not gonna support you. Don't try to pull that kind of bullshit. You better do better. You can do better, and you should do better, kind of thing for me. So that's me on Scarlet. I really liked it. Grusha, best boy.
So, I have my Halloween game here, my Halloween game of choice.
Yeah.
So I finished the first Fear game, I think in like 2017, 2018, something like that. For those who don't know, the Fear series was made by a team called Monolith, which made like No One Lives Forever, the Shogo, the Mecha first-person shooter game, and some other stuff like that. And they had a bit of a rough streak for a while. Like, they made like some games that weren't received very well, like Blood 2 and stuff like that. And then they made the first Fear. And the first Fear blew everybody away when it came out. It was like this perfect horror first-person shooter with the slow-mo John Woo gunfights. And like every single bullet fired would cause this massive explosion of debris and dust that would kick up into the air and had all these cool particle effects that are really mind-blowing for the time. And the first Fear is really still held in very high regard in both the horror and the FPS genre. Finally got around to playing Fear 2. I have all three of them, actually. Chris gave me all three of them, PS3 copies of all three. And what I have to say about Fear 2 is that it is a decent shooter. It is a terrible sequel to Fear. So the horror aspect of this game is completely just thrown out the window because it is so goddamn ridiculous. It is so over the top, like right off the bat. So like you have the creepy, like the girl from The Ring kind of
Yeah.
is your horror monster of choice for this series. Alma is her name, and it was very subtle how they implemented her in the first game. Not the least bit subtle in this game. Like immediately from moment zero at the beginning of this game, she's like flinging bodies around and causing like weird trips and stuff, and it's like it's so over the top. It's so over the top.
You already have like the knowledge of her.
So a scripted sequence dumped me out of bounds, and I don't know if I can get back in unless I reload my save. I am not supposed to be back here. There's two hallways that lead to out of bounds, drop to your death plane kind of areas. So I think I'm just going to have to reload my checkpoint, but I just thought this was really funny.
Alright. You have like what, 2 more games?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have like 3 more games technically.
Technically, this is 2 games, though. We'll get to that.
Okay,
but,
so...
Actually, I have this one, and Gun Grip as well. So I technically have 3. So we're fine.
So, okay.
So that was the first problem with Fear 2, is that the horror aspect is just, it's so ridiculous, it's impossible to ever be scared by anything that happens in this game because it's just so cartoonishly over the top and ridiculous. And the other part that didn't work is they added this like immersive HUD element, which works in certain games like in Halo or in Metroid Prime or in Star Wars Republic Commando, where you have like a little silhouette of your HUD with like little elements on it, like you're really wearing like a mask, and like when you die the thing shatters and you see like the broken glass on the screen and that kind of thing. And it's supposed to be this cool immersive element, but it actually kind of takes you out of the immersion and makes it more like video gamey in this instance. It would have been better if there was no, like the less HUD in a game like this, the better, because the more intimate it is with you and the crazy shit that you're seeing. So I would have rather had without that. The combat is fun. There's some really cool sci-fi stuff they did. Like there's a couple of sequences with like a mech thing you get to drive, which is always really cool. But it's just much more of an action game than a horror game this time around. The slow-mo was really overpowered. There's a much larger focus of like the aiming down sights than the shooting from the hip, like the first game was known from. And the story is bad. Like the story is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, no.
The ending, I was like, well, that was dumb, because there's like, and most people share this sentiment as well, so I'm not going to offend anybody by this, and it's, if I offer some minor spoilers, it's not going to really surprise anybody too much, but like there's this, how do I even explain this?
Very carefully.
So Alma, the weird, creepy girl thing, in a lot of this game takes on a like adolescent or adult form, and at the very end you're trying to go to like the source of wherever she is and destroy her, and there's like this weird chamber thing, and you get locked in there instead, and you get like cut off from your allies, and it's like you and her in the chamber, and like you can't move, and she's got you like paralyzed or whatever, and then she walks away, and it looks like she's like pregnant with like your supposed like incarnated like weird ghost love child thing, and it's like, what the fuck?
What do you mean?
And that's what that was my question. I was like, what? And I'm like, I saw this. I'm like,
She's pregante?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. It was dumb. It was very dumb.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah, fun game. Very bad sequel to Fear, but the third one is worse.
Fun.
But the third one at least has co-op. So if I can get somebody to suffer through that game with me together, which will probably be Chris, then I will play that one as well.
I'm not good with those kind of games. So that was the last game I completely finished, was Pokemon Scarlet. But there are some games that I played a lot of this year, and it was this game. It was another Pokemon game. I actually, Ollie and Devin really got into doing the DLC for the Crown Tundra, specifically the raid dens to get shiny legendaries, and there was actually there's like a few shiny legendaries that I actually wanted. Suicune being one of them, but I already, like a dipshit, caught it, so there's no chance for me to have shiny Suicune. But that's okay, because I got a shiny Giratina.
There you go.
And, it actually was like a huge influx of friends that were like, oh man, I want to do that too. So I ended up making like a group chat basically for shiny hunting, which Scarlet and Violet delayed it a little bit, but we're probably going to go back to this pretty soon because we kind of just missed the raid dens in this game.
Because the new multiplayer is so much worse than this.
It's so bad. And like this, I never had a complaint for it because if it was taking too long, it was probably because there was someone, me, that forgot to press OK and forgot to input all their controls before they went back to crocheting. And that's why it got slow, but at least it gave you several options of shinies. Like, basically, you go through the 4 different chambers and shiny hunt. You can catch each one, including the legendary, and you can keep one. I've gotten several shinies out of it. I also got a shiny Ho-Oh, but I was, like, bitching about wanting to, like, Shannon wanted to do a shiny Giratina raid, and I was like, I don't want to do Giratina, because I already got it, and all I wanted, Ho-Oh, and I was bitching about having to do Giratina, and then I immediately get shiny Ho-Oh, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stop complaining for the rest of the night. We can do whatever y'all want, because I just got a shiny legendary.
Yeah.
And so, poured some major hours, but I also completed the Pokedex this year, so I could get the shiny charm, so it would be more better odds, basically, but, so far, I missed this game already. So, remember when people were complaining about this game?
Yeah, it's...
I don't want to hear anyone else complain about this game after Scarlet Violet. Because that's a good game. Other than the story. I will say, I don't like the story. I can complain about the story.
It is crazy how, like, you basically... Yeah, just oops all Pokemon. You just have a stack of Pokemon games over there.
It's literally like 4 Pokemon games that I've really played. I mean, it's funny because I do love the hell out of Pokemon, but I went from never playing Pokemon games for, like, a couple of years to, like, never putting it back down.
Yeah.
And then this year was just, we had so many. That was probably what was the quality control issue with Scarlet, was because they were pushing out so much shit. So...
Well, I actually do have I have a couple of games that I accidentally skipped because I don't have the physical copies in front of me. Because they're either download only or they're somewhere else. And so I have a brief Pokemon thing to mention, which is that, and I'm not trying to be cynical and be like new bad, old good, but I said to some friends of mine, I was like, I almost would rather replay like Black and White 2 than to play anything past Sword and Shield. And that's just kind of, it was more so just what I was in the mood for than it was anything overtly cynical. But we were doing all this Pokemon discussion around all that, and our friend, Jonathan was over talking about competitive Pokemon team building and all that, and I'm like, I really just want to replay Black and White 2. But what I did is I went back and finally did the post-game stuff in Black 2 that I'd never done before. So I over the last several weeks, every night when I got home from work, was playing the Black 2 post-game, and that was super fun.
Did you ever beat Cynthia?
No, so I'm technically not done with that yet, but I will do that here. In fact, I might do it tonight. We'll see. But
okay. I would love to, because you walked into there and she was like, hello, motherfucker.
Yeah, Cynthia jump scare. It's like...
The music plays.
You walk in on her in like... Imagine you just walk in on her with her hair pulled up and she's in a robe and you're just like... and you like back up against the door.
She's in her best friend's like villa.
Yeah.
Her and Caitlin besties.
Right. And she's like, oh, no, you're not going anywhere. I'm going to hand you your ass really quick before you leave.
That being said, I do need to play Soul Silver and actually beat it. I need to actually do that because, like, why haven't I done that? I don't know.
But I played 2 games that are technically, one is DLC for a game, one is a game that is entirely all digital. So on the Ratchet & Clank discussion, I in addition to playing Going Commando from beginning to end, I played the PS3 digital download exclusive Quest for Booty, which is it's
That sounds like a quest I'm always on.
it's technically Ratchet and Clank 5.5, technically, because it's an in-between game between Tools of Destruction and A Crack in Time on the PS3.
How many Ratchet and Clank games are there?
There's, mainline there is mainline there is 8. There's the first 3, there's Deadlocked, there is the PS3 trilogy, and there's the PS5 one. But there's a bunch of multiplayer only spin-offs. There's the PSP one, there's the Secret Agent Clank game.
So I don't feel as bad dragging you through all the 3D Sonics.
Yeah, there's a lot.
You're playing Shadow the Hedgehog, motherfucker.
Oh my god. But I'm only going to take you through... I really only care to take you through the original PS2 trilogy and Deadlock, so that's 4 games for Ratchet and Clank. I don't really much care to take you through the PS3 ones unless you really feel like it, but Quest for Booty was fine. It's only about maybe 2 or 3 hours for a $15 download. It was actually really well reviewed back in the day as being a more tight platformer experience compared to Tools of Destruction. And it uses the same engine, uses all the same weapons, and the story is, again, very silly, and not really even silly in a good way like the PS2 ones were. It's very cartoony. It's about a bunch of pirates. What a concept, right? And
Pirates after booty?
Yeah.
Oh.
But it was fun and charming, and it was a pretty nice little experience for $15. And it's only ever been available as a download on the PS3. It's not available any other way, so that's the only way you can play it. So I knew I had to play it before it goes away forever. And I finally went back and did the DLC for Rage 2, which I've ranted about this a million times, where I'm the only person that will go up to bat for Rage 1 and say how much I like it. And then Rage 2 was, this particular copy was actually gifted to me by a very good friend who was a QA tester for the game. And so I originally picked it up on launch for the Xbox One and wasn't all that sold on it. But then she sold me her collector's edition PS4 version that she got for being on the dev team. And I played it on the PS4 Pro, which has the enhanced frame rate and the visual. It just runs way better on the PS4 Pro than it would on a standard PS4 or a standard Xbox One. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Played this DLC, and it was fine. It's fine. So it's like another wasteland island to the south of the main world that the game takes place in, and the story of the DLC kind of went in one ear and out the other. I didn't much pay attention to it, but the combat was fun but difficult. You fight the Ghost Clan, which is the clan you fight at the very beginning of the first game, which are supposed to be this very primitive tribalistic clan that's kind of manifested in the wasteland, where they use a lot of practical tools and weird throwing boomerangs and stuff like that. And yet for some reason between the first game and this game, this clan has taken over an entire island and has a bunch of technology and shit, and it's super hard to believe that's what happened. It's total weird suspension of disbelief. But this is a game that badly needs a variety of enemies to be good, because you only are dealing with the one enemy type when fighting the Ghost Clan. And the solution to beating them is just to use the regular assault rifle, and because it's a hit scan weapon and it just hits them in the head from afar. And you're like, I literally have a BFG and I have a new weapon that is exclusive to the DLC, and I'm not even using it because the easier solution is just to hit scan them from afar with the assault rifle. So it was kind of repetitive in that regard. And then I find out throughout this DLC that the character you play as in the first game has a name, and he is canon in this game, and you get his weapon. You get his little cellular pistol, which is cool. It was a good time. I enjoyed it, but it's weird how much Rage 2 was like a lateral move from the first game and not really a huge step forward or step back. It was kind of a lateral move in a different direction where it's like some elements of it are worse than the first game and some elements are way better. It's weird. That is the DLC games that I played. I mentioned the Black 2 post game. So the next game that I actually finished this year was I went through and finished the Crysis Remaster Collection as well. So I finished Crysis 2 and 3. I wasn't really in a huge rush to replay Crysis 1, frankly. Although the visuals in all three games do look way, way better on PS4 Pro than they did on the original Xbox 360 or PS3. Because these games, the Crysis games were a bit of a meme in the mid-2000s, where it's like the first game pushed the power of PCs back in the day, where it was kind of a meme. It's like, oh yeah, well, can your PC run Crysis? Like, everybody knows those memes.
I don't.
And you had to have been there. Well, technically now you do, because I just explained it. So
That's true, but will I remember it?
probably not.
Thank you.
I remember really enjoying the second game, and the second game being my favorite in the trilogy when I first played it on the Xbox 360. It's a little art card in there. But replaying the second one on here, it was like, I forgot how kind of goofy it is. And a lot of it, I think, is the dialogue and all that. Like the enemies that you fight, whether you're fighting you start off fighting a human like militia called Cell, and then you find out they're fucking around with a bunch of alien stuff, and then you end up fighting the aliens. But the Cell, it could have a double meaning depending on
my God.
on what's happening in the story there. But their commanding officers on the radio, like what was the guy's name? Lockhart, who you fight on the Liberty Island. Like his radio chatter is so over the top and so unprofessional for like a military leader. He's like just screaming at his guys like, "Get that fucking guy! I want his head on a stick!" and like all this stuff, and it's like super over the top. And I'm like, this game is kind of goofy from what I remember, but it was a good time. And I just thought it was a little bit too long. I thought there were maybe a couple of chapters they could have cut out of it because it was getting a little bit tedious towards the end. But it has a very intended progression with when they give you new weapons and powers and everything throughout the game. And then the third game was made almost immediately after it and used the same engine and all the same weapons and a lot of the same enemies. And the third game, I don't remember it as well. Like, it kind of went in one ear and out the other when I first played it back in the day. But replaying the third game on this collection was great. I had a great time with the third game on this collection, and I think it was because back in the day, I was kind of fatigued going from 2 to 3 so quickly, but it's like this time around, I had just come off of 2, and 3 gives you all of 2's mechanics, plus more from the very beginning, and just lets you go into the sandbox with all these tools, and it's like the least restrictive, most rewarding version of the experience. And so it was a lot of fun. Plus I can't remember who voices the main character in 3, Prophet, but he's really charismatic, and he has a lot of fun banter with his sidekick. And the only thing that I can't stand about the third one is whenever there is a situation in a first-person game where there are invisible enemies that rush you and melee you, it's just so irritating because it just becomes this waiting game of standing in place, waiting for them to rush you, and then attacking them when they're right in front of you. And you just like, all right, I'm gonna like leapfrog through this forest as these invisible enemies rush at me, and I just kill them one after another. Okay, here's another one. Okay, here's another one. And it's like, there's so many games that do that. I just hate it. It's just it never works whenever they try to do a mechanic like that. Do you have another one before I continue?
I have a game that I have 2 games I've started, so I'll just talk about one. God, what was it? It had been like early October or into September when the Harvestella demo came out. It's basically, it's a Square Enix game.
Yeah, it's basically Final Fantasy Rune Factory or Final Fantasy Harvest Moon.
Story seasons, kind of all those kind of things. And I got the game for Christmas. And so I played the demo and I really liked it. And it's not... I think my problem with the most recent Story of Season games is that it just gets so redundant. There's not like a story like how some of the older Harvest Moon games were, like where you had missions and you were trying to save the Harvest Goddess. So for this game to have like a story in between like the farming stuff that you can do, I like. It doesn't really feel like a farming simulator yet. Maybe it will become more relevant when I play more. But I barreled through that demo so damn fast. I was loving the hell out of it. So I'm really excited to play the rest of it. There's like a lady in complete armor. I'm really excited to see if she looks like anything.
Peak character design.
It really is. Can't see her face, but she's like a badass, like all metal, badass, and I'm really excited to know more of her. I think I'm just so story driven, so I like when things have a story and the story is interesting.
So I have one that we sort of replayed, but my main reason for including it was because I decided to, I just got this weird bug and decided I had to go back and get the Platinum Trophy for this game. So you can thank Shannon for this one. So we went and replayed this little indie horror game, Yomawari Night Alone, which is the first in what is now a trilogy. The third game just came out in October. And I will be playing that soon and finishing it, so I will have finished the whole trilogy. But yeah, we replayed Yomawari Night Alone. I was very happy to replay it because it's just a quirky little cozy kind of game for me, and I had very fond memories of sitting in bed playing it on the Vita at night in the dark and everything. And it was just such a cozy little game for me when I first played it.
It's a neat game.
Nippon Ichi Software, one of their little low budget titles, and I really liked it. And so I showed it to you and Shannon, and you guys wanted to play it. We put it down for a while, came back to it, got pretty much up to the ending, just about.
Yeah,
we're right about to
almost at
finish
the
it.
end.
But my main thing was I was trying to coordinate plans with everybody was a little bit difficult, and I got kind of frustrated at the part we stopped at, so we just kind of stopped. But I was looking through the trophies, and I was like, I can platinum this.
And you sure did.
Did everything I was supposed to do, except the last trophy was to play the game for a total of 50 hours, which was not... the game is not 50 hours long. It's like maybe 5-6 hours to play it if you know where you're going. And so
it could be easily like a 10-hour game.
Yeah, so there was my initial save file on the Vita from when I first beat it, plus all of the post-game stuff I did to get all of the other trophies, and even after that, I had to come home from work, turn the Vita on, and just let it idle for as long as I could while I was awake, and then saving, shutting it off, charging it again, and doing the same thing for days on end to get the clock to run.
It took you about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I literally just had to let the game sit there while playing a different game on the DS or the other Vita that I have to let the clock run up to 50 hours to get the Platinum Trophy. Probably the dumbest Platinum Trophy, dumbest trophy I've gotten to get a Platinum. But I'm happy to do that. And actually, it looks like the Platinum for the second game, Yomawari Midnight Shadows, is pretty easy to get as well, so I might seek that one out.
Yeah.
That one does not have a 50-hour trophy from what I could tell.
Thank God. So the second game that I played a lot of really has been in the last week, to be completely honest, but it definitely gets honorable mentions when I impulsively decide to play a game. So Clinton was scrolling through his PlayStation thing and I was like, Dragon Quest Builders? I was like, I want to see that. And so he clicked into it and
You didn't see me play a minute of it for a couple weeks. I played a minute of it a couple weeks before then, and
yeah.
But you're like, I want to see more of that, and
yeah, and then I went and made my own. So I figured I couldn't play with his account. I had to literally make my own PlayStation account, and I am at chapter 3. And I think I've played this game for like a whole week. But I also had 4 days off for Christmas.
You've probably put 15 or 20 hours in this game already.
Maybe more.
Yeah, like which means it's actually a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, this is the Dragon Quest Minecraft clone, and I remember when this game got announced and how excited I was, because I was like, there's a Dragon Quest Minecraft clone? Are you kidding me?
So, like, fun fact of the day, and I'm not gonna, like, you're probably gonna be so bad. I don't care for Minecraft. Like, it's one of those games where it's, like, open world and it's easy for me to get distracted. Mm-hmm. And I don't get anywhere with it. But with this game, because it's the Dragon Quest series, there's like little missions, and you're like the builder that's trying to save the world, basically. And
it's a more restrictive experience. Like, it doesn't have the sheer open-endedness that Minecraft does. But because of that, it's a more polished game with more intended play. Like, it has a structured story. It's not quite as much of a sandbox.
Yeah.
It has the mining and the crafting, but it's also story-based, so...
Yeah, and I think, and again, like, I like when things have a story and I can focus in on the story, because really everything that has caused me to continue playing has been the story sparks of it. Is trying to get everything I need to do the next thing and whatnot. But I'm in chapter 3, and I think there's 5 chapters total. I'd have to double check. There's either 4 or 5, but I'm close to the end or halfway there kind of thing. I just like the Dragon Quest series a lot, which I'm sure you're grateful for because it's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
And I just find it quirky and charming. It's got really fun music. The enemies are silly.
The pun names, weird accents, goo puns.
I forgot to tell you, but at the end of chapter 1, you get a little slime into your town.
Yeah.
Yeah, you rescue one, and he comes to live with you. You don't have that in the other chapter, and I haven't gotten one in this chapter. This chapter, I just have a bunch of the guys with the big burly guys with the mask. Yeah. I have like a squad of those right now. And they're all like, there's like Maxie and Glutamus, and like, I forgot what the other one's name, but they're all they're funny as hell names. And there's Barbella, and then I've recruited 2 other people, but it's fun. And there's like parts of the story that's being like teased when your character falls asleep, but like at the very beginning I didn't realize that you're like the Rubus or whatnot, the god or whatnot, goes, remember, you're not a hero. And I'm like, why would you specifically say that? So I'm really curious to see on why that was said like that, because it's like, this game revolves around you being like the grand hero kind of thing. And
the grand builder.
Well, I know, but like the series, yeah, but it's like you're the grand builder, and I just find it fascinating for a game that operates on the main hero to have that kind of like dialogue was just like.
And maybe it might just be because in this timeline the actual hero of Dragon Quest 1 died trying. So
yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting, and I like it. It scratches a weird itch. It's definitely like a hyper fixation, because like I was thinking about wanting to play it tonight, but I'm probably not. But like I'm like, when
yeah,
when can I play it again? Let that itch. But like this week's been like kind of busy because Christmas, back to work.
Yeah.
New Year's.
And you already have put a crap ton of hours into it.
Yeah, it did distract me from my cleaning prior to Christmas Day kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Christmas Eve. I might have put 7 hours into it on Monday. I've definitely played a lot of this game.
Which, like I said, it's longer than I thought it was going to be if that's the case. So.
Well, just keep an eye out for the second one. because
Yeah.
we're gonna.
No, I have it.
You do have
yeah,
it?
I have it. I have it
Oh,
on PS4.
okay.
I
I
was
didn't.
hopefully if I can find a Switch copy of it for you, that'd be good as well. But I have it already. I have the PS4.
Yeah, if you
version.
find a Switch copy, you will never have to worry about me stealing the PlayStation 4 ever again.
But so the last game that I finished in 2022, to no one's surprise,
Oh yeah.
I tried my hardest to get it on launch day and there was a lot of games coming out around the time that the new Gungrave came out, because right around the same time the Tactics Ogre Remaster came out, the new Valkyrie game came out, the new Star Ocean came out, and all those games. And I'm like, I'm going to put all those to the wayside. The new Dragon Quest Treasures came out as well, and we haven't played that yet.
We gotta get that.
But I was like, if there's any of these games I'm going to pay full price for, which this is technically a budget title, so it wasn't full price. It was $50 instead of $60. But I was going to play this on day one. And I was going to play it for as long as I could until I beat it. And when I was talking with Jesse today, I realized something about this game I think is the perfect analogy, which some people will understand and some people won't. But this game is to me what Shenmue 3 is to Shenmue fans, because it's a new game in a very old series. It hasn't had its third entry, and it's been like 15 plus years, and nothing happens in the story. Nothing happens. And so like, before I get to, I'm not going to go too off in the woods with this one, because I'm obviously planning a whole video around it. And I've already done I did a first impressions video about this, which is probably the last thing I uploaded to the channel prior to this. But the game is a rare instance of a game where the gameplay is like a solid 8 out of 10, and every other aspect of the game is like a 3 or a 4 at best. And I'm not complaining because it's a budget game. If anything, there are ways they could have saved money on assets that they didn't do that would have made for a better story. Because the cutscenes in this game look beautiful. They're like, modern graphics cutscenes. But all they do is like show you where you're going next in the level. Nothing happens in the story of this game. And compare that to Overdose, which had these long, indulgent cutscenes where the characters would talk and like reference things that happened in the first game. And Mika grew as a character, and she had a lot of agency, and she was just awesome in Overdose. And in this game, she has 2 scenes and is then turned into a plot device that is not resolved until the end of the game, completely taking out all of her agency from the story. And there's like other characters that they bring back from the other games that occasionally show up in this, like Bungie or like Zell from Overdose, and they don't do anything. And like they introduce a new playable character as well, Quartz, and there's technically 3 playable characters. Like in Overdose, you have, instead of the other 2 guys from Overdose, you have Grave, you have Bungie, and you have Quartz. And it's not one of those things where you have to beat the entire game as Grave to play as the other 2. You get to play as them in the missions where they are relevant. But you want to know how many missions where you get to play as the other 2 characters?
1 each, right?
1. Exactly 1 time in the entire game do you actually get to play as Quartz. You get to play as Bungie technically twice, but for the second time is like 30 seconds. It's barely anything, and I'm like, why? And maybe I went in under false expectations, where the inclusion of other playable characters was more of a bonus thing but I was watching people do gameplay analysis and stuff like that, like, oh well, when you're playing as this character you can do this move and do this move, and I thought, okay, cool, that's a core part of the game. Then absolutely was not a core part of the game. It was literally just thrown on at the last minute kind of thing. And just overall, it starts off with a great first impression. Amazing opening to the game, amazing gameplay, fighting the thugs and the gang members and everything. Very satisfying, lots of new elements to the gameplay that were added that work very well. But the last third of the game is, you can tell, I don't know if it was because the game has such a troubled development, because this game is delayed and restarted from the ground up many times since it was announced in like 2018. So I don't know if this was part of its troubled development, but the last third of the game it goes so downhill. Like, again, nothing is happening in the story, and the balance of the game is atrocious. There are bosses where every attack they have will one shot or two shot you, and so the difficulty spike between regular levels and regular enemies and the late game bosses is just ridiculous. Like the game's difficulty curve goes like this towards the end. I'm like, what is happening? And I had to turn the difficulty down to finish it. And I got legitimately just angry at the last two missions of this game. They are insufferably bad. And the fight against it's Gampo, the leader of the Raven Clan, in his superior form, it glitched out on me twice to where I went out of bounds like through the floor of the arena and had to restart my save file because of that.
Well, that's
and
not
so
good.
It's like I could have been on track to beat the fight and then clipped through the floor and died, which is just so unacceptable to me. But the difference between a game like this and presumably what we've seen with Pokemon, maybe it's not the case, but they are actually determined to patchwork this game and fix the things people are complaining about it to the extent they can. They have, since it's released, which is again only less than a month ago, they have, probably right on exactly a month ago.
Yeah.
They have released 2 patches which have actually severely tweaked the balance of the game and made it better. And when I finally do the video essay about the game, I want to talk about how the patches have made it a better, more playable game. But ultimately, it's going to be one of those where nothing is going to make this nothing burger of a story satisfying. But at least it was fun, and I'm happy that it exists. I'm happy to play a new Gungrave, and it definitely is getting those creative juices going to make these video essays about it. So that is that.
That's a lot of games. We played a lot of games this year. I
Yeah.
feel like I played more games, but I can't remember. I know I played a lot of Animal Crossing as well, but my Luxray has a hole in it.
We have Bingus. Do you have any games you beat this year? Which game did you beat? Spring World?
Spring World. I love the size comparison of this Luxray plushie to my cat. Because I'm pretty sure the Luxray is bigger than
George.
Aster.
Smudge.
Smudge.
Anything else you had to add, or?
No, I think I mean, it was a lot of Pokemon. And I'm not mad about it because I have loved every bit of the Pokemon I have played. Definitely gotten really into the shiny hunting this year.
Were there any videos or streamers or anything you watched this year that were really memorable?
So me and Ollie have been watching these Mario Party playthroughs with most of them have been on King of Skills channel, and then it's his friends like TC Nick and Sophus and Vernius, and watching their videos have been really fun. It makes me want to play Mario Party with my friends, but it also makes me realize that I'd probably be a toxic shithead depending on who I am with.
Yeah.
Because it's like certain friends just instigate the asshole out of you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And then, like, certain friends, like, I don't feel like I could ever be mean to kind of thing. Like, I just don't think I could be mean to Kat or Ollie. But, like, there's other friends where I'm like, you look bullyable.
Yeah, you've identified yourself as okay to bully.
Yeah, and I say that affectionately, of course. Like, I don't actually mean any ill will towards my friends, but like I was telling Sam this, I was like, I don't think I could ever play Mario Party with you and Chris at the same time, because y'all would just get me pissed off and wound up, and
you would want to commit murder. Yeah,
actually want to commit murder. And this is a game I grew up playing with my family and has been very, very competitive with my family in like in a very aggressive way. And I try not to be that person. And it's part of the reason why I don't play games like that, because I don't I don't like the person I've become. But I do want to play the newer Mario Party with this because it's got online play that's good, and it's got a lot of older games. It's got Mushroom Mix-Up, and I fuck with that. And so those all their channels have different like Mario Party. So I feel like I've watched a lot of mostly with Ole just cause, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched Vinny play Pokemon Arceus, which is always fun watching someone that's not super into Pokemon play a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Like, it's just something about them just being like, what the fuck is this Pokemon? Will never not amaze me.
Me the other day with Tropius or whatever. Like, what
Yeah,
is this fucking
I'm like,
tree?
that's a Gen 3 Pokemon. You're like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, it's a banana.
It's a banana.
He's a banana. He's a goodbye. He flies. He's a flying type. Yeah, it's just been the typical, the ones I'm very devoted to. It's Manly Badass and Vinny on Vine Sauce. Those two really are the ones that I enjoy watching the mostest.
Yeah, my favorite content creators this year knocked it out of the park this year with some good video essays. And I know I talked last year about ones that I watched like over and over again that were good, but this year was something else. Like, oh my god, there were some good ones. So the Dan Olsen NFT one is
That's
legendary.
a very good one, yeah.
Over 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that for that one. It was so good. I've probably watched that about 5 or 6 times. And then he's made 2 since then. He made the Contrepreneurs one, and then one that I kid you not is called "Why It's Rude to Suck at World of Warcraft," which is a video about tryhardism in competitive games, which I think is a super interesting topic, and I need to finish watching that one. Super Eye Patch Wolf also made like 3 just absolute banger videos. The Berserk one, the Chainsaw Man one, and my favorite one being the one on influencer courses.
Yes.
That was a very good and very sobering. The Garfield one was last year.
Yes. Izzy. I binge watched all of her shit like in August.
Yeah.
I binge watched like her entire channel.
Yeah.
I still need to watch the Warrior Cat one, but I'm just not emotionally prepared to be called out.
We get to watch the Brony one tonight, right?
Yeah, if you want to. It's an hour long.
I mean, we'll have it on in the background, I guess. But,
yeah.
So the influencer course video was it's another depressing reality of how many content creators are grifters and how much grift exists on the big platforms of the internet. But it's also like a very sobering reminder of the kind of nightmare dystopia we live in as trying to make it whatever that means to you as a content creator kind of thing. Just outstanding. It was a conversation that I had been wanting to have for a while, and to hear somebody put it in those words was very very refreshing. And then Mandalore Gaming's video on the Marathon trilogy and Pathways into Darkness, but specifically the Marathon Infinity video was I was literally at work when that video came out, and I got so distracted. I was like, I have got to stop what I'm doing and finish this video because I am so hooked on what the fuck is happening right now. It was
oh my god,
so good. I'm trying to think if there were any others.
I remembered like an exciting thing that also happened this year.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bands released an album in July.
Yeah.
Shinedown released their Planet Zero album, and it was really, really good. And I think I listened to like the whole album like maybe 20 times in a row when it came out. It's so good. I like that band a lot, and I can't wait for them to come to Georgia again so I can watch them.
One of my coworkers yesterday was I was telling him about you going to the Shinedown concerts, and he was actually showing me pictures of concerts that he'd been to.
Ooh.
He actually got front row seats to see Nine Inch Nails, which was pretty cool.
That's interesting.
Because I was telling him about my Quake vinyl that I have and how that soundtrack is done by Trent Reznor. And he's like, yeah, I got to do front row seats for him. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
I'd like to see Five Finger again. I also have another like super exciting thing that happened to me this year, other than like getting these little bingies. I got these year. They're from the Pokemon Center because Sinnoh goodness got me Luxray plushie. But like one of my Christmas presents is super special to me, and I have to show it off. I have to show it off.
We have Karibo and we have Gay Karibo.
So I got this is a Christmas present. It's a blanket. My friend Kat made it for me, and it's my colors. And I'm gonna try.
She literally handmade it, and if you look through the individual like quilted squares, they're the shape of clovers, which is just your thing in so many levels.
Yeah, like you can see like the little clover, and I love it so much because she is like, I saw these colors and I was like, oh, that's very Michelle, and I'm like, that's such a thoughtful gift, and she like made me an entire blanket, and I'm like, I can't imagine how much time she spent on this.
Yeah,
but
like this
it's
is one
so
of those.
Special, and I don't.
Yeah, this is one
I
of
can't
those things.
express how much I love it.
This is one of those things that is absolutely, without a doubt, made with love. And it just completely blows me away. The same thing with what she did for me. It just absolutely blows me away.
Yeah, I can grab that too. I'm gonna grab it because it's cool looking and I like it. And I want to show off Shannon's too.
Yeah.
It's like oodles of like handmade goodies for Christmas this year to make you feel loved. I grab the boy gently, very carefully. So like, Kat made Clinton Har's armor.
Yeah, from Fire Emblem, which that I know she made it as a Christmas ornament. That is sitting on my desk year round. I'm not letting this thing leave my sight.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then Shannon, here's him. Shannon made she burnt these little pieces of wood with our favorite little guy. She's really sad. She's going to patch up Quagsire's little head.
And may have done permanent damage to her respiratory system in the process. Yeah,
she did not. She's a little dingy and we love her, but she didn't wear a respirator thing. But look how cute they are. I love them so much. I think stuff like that is super special when people make you gifts. Yeah. And I will always I always want to like shout out those is when people make you stuff, because like I love getting gifts like this. I love having stuff drawn for me. Like Ole has drawn stuff for me for my birthday and Christmas in the past, and I just can't express how much I love shit like this. And I just have to like I feel like these are a good time to like talk about how much I like my friends.
Yeah.
And they have been a very important part of getting through this year.
Yeah, 100% without a doubt.
Between getting to see Ole and Devin at AWA and just Shannon and Kat throughout this entire year.
Yeah, and whether it was playing Yu-Gi-Oh with them, like teaching them how to play the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG, and now we're going through Final Fantasy X together. I'm introducing them to my favorite game of all time. That's definitely going to be quite an experience, and I'm looking forward to that whole experience of them living all of those moments for the first time. And then there's like a bunch of other games I want to go through after that as well, which I guess kind of segues into what are plans for 2023. And I got to get a more consistent schedule. I've got to become more disciplined about producing things, and I probably say that every year and don't do it. And it's just one of those things I expect better of myself, and I'm trying to be more disciplined about time constraints and getting things done. But I'm working on improving the production quality of videos. Last year I got the new camera, which shoots at 60 FPS or in 4K, whichever one I feel like is more important. Right now I feel like the 60 FPS is more important than the 4K because most people don't get to appreciate 4K.
Not if you have vision like me.
Starting to upgrade to a better microphone. Looking into XLR microphones for the computer when I do the post commentary. When I have the money, I will eventually get the Shure one, the one that everybody wants, the Shure XLR microphone that everybody uses for podcasting and stuff. I'll use that as my dedicated microphone whenever I can afford it. It's like $350, but one day I'll get it
eventually.
And
a new Switch as well.
Yeah, and then
Me realizing I'm a little hoarder for the Switch.
it's absolutely fine. But we need to finish Dragon Quest One on the Switch because
Yes.
I was rewatching H.C. Bailey's Let's Play of the vanilla NES version of Dragon Quest One, and I'm like, man, we really got to get to the end of that.
We
And then,
also need to finish more of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I
we
need
did
to
start that this year.
I need to finish Ocarina of Time. I need to finish Dragon Quest V, which I'm playing right now as well. The next SMT game I may play is Strange Journey. Kat is borrowing SMT4 right now, and it sounds like she's really enjoying it. And I think even if I had my copy of SMT4 back right now, I'd probably still play Strange Journey first, but it's a tough call. And then I really want... We're probably going to, after we finish Final Fantasy X, we're probably going to sit down and play Fire Emblem Blazing Sword.
Yes.
And I realize I'm really behind on finishing Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. But maybe I'll just wait and we'll do that as a cooperative thing anyway. But yeah, there's a lot of games I'm looking forward to finishing.
I had to finish Skyward Sword.
Yeah, a lot of games I'm looking forward to finishing in 2023. I know I'm going to play the Yomawari Lost in the Dark is the third one. I'm going to finish that pretty soon. And games just for the retrospective series, which again, the next video is upcoming, is the Revenge of the Fallen video, the Sengoku Basara video, and the Gungrave video, maybe not in that order. And then the next couple of Muso videos is probably going to be Fist of the North Star after that, and then maybe Hyrule Warriors after that.
Ooh, but I realize we haven't gotten Fire Emblem Three Hopes yet, and I won't. So what I want to get it, but I will wait to play that with you.
Yeah.
But I do feel like you might need to play some Three Houses before you play that, because there's Three Houses things in that
fine.
game.
Yep.
But as far as me for 2023, I said it last year and I didn't do it this year, mostly because I was trying to think of a concept that I wanted to make as far as like merchandise. And I finally came up with one when I was trying to think of like if I did like Halloween charms, and then it just to cupcakes. So cupcake charms maybe next year. Hopefully I'm going to try to do some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, maybe some Pokemon stuff. It's just I'm in this weird place of like my art's improving, but I'm not quite where I want to be, and it's like a weird, like my perspective is changing on what my art looks like. I'm like in the weird in-between phase of like improvement and being where I want to be improvement-wise, and still
dissatisfied.
It's weird. It's a weird concept, because it's like I'm fighting with my art style, I'm fighting with like trying to be more ambitious, and it's just... I'm not getting a whole lot done with it, and not to mention I had this like resurgence of my original story that I kind of want to start working on again. Not to mention there is some stuff that me and Ollie talked about wanting to work together on that I'd like to pick back up.
More cursed Pokemon fusion streams.
Cursed Pokemon fusion streams, and I actually have thought of a couple new ones, like new concepts, because we found like this Pokemon generator thing. And I might have drawn out some weird little fusion thingies, but we'll just have to see. It's more so coordinating between me and her, which really isn't that hard. We just need to just do it. Like, a lot of like my issue is that you just need to just do it. And the problem with just doing it when you're an artist is that sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it.
What are you quoting?
Shia LaBeouf.
I'm going to fight you.
Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
I am going to actually fight you.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end. So
yes.
We will see you guys in the new year.
In the new year.
And before we know it, we'll be doing this at the end of 2023, getting ready for
Don't
2024.
say that.